AIM-listed Vast Resources is a company that's come back into the public eye recently. It's been around a number of years, but it's just completed its first sale of copper concentrate. What a time to do it. Joining us now is Vast Resources Chief Executive Andrew Prelea. Andrew, great to catch up with you. We spoke years ago when the company was in its infancy. You've now got this milestone under your belt as Chief Executive. Explain the journey it's taken to get to where you are and how significant this news is that we've heard about recently.
It's actually extremely nice to see you again. It's been, I think, 7-8 years. So when I first joined the company, but more in a consultancy capacity. So a lot's changed since then. Back then, we were focused on Zimbabwe, on gold exploration, and coming out of the diamond assets that were taken away at the time. Since then, we've evolved the business in Romania to a mining producer of concentrates in polymetallic mines. This is the second mine we've opened in the country. We're the only operator in country that's not state-owned, so it's quite a success story for Vast. So we're quite proud of our achievements, and this first copper concentrate sales from opening a closed mine is a significant milestone for the company and for the country as well.
What's the situation now, having made this first commitment and this first sale? Is this going to be a milestone you're going to achieve and then step back and try and regroup, or are you able to continue to bring copper to the market?
No, this is at the startup phase. We obtained the license back in 2018. We secured funding in January this year, and we brought the mine into production, a closed underground mine. And now we're at the point where this is the commencement of production. We will be growing the production over the course of the last quarter of this year and the first quarter of next year, and then we'll be ramping up even further. So this will be a long-term producer of copper concentrate and lead and zinc concentrates as well, with the gold and silver credits, as well as molybdenum and tungsten in the future. So it's a high value mine, and it's going to continue growing.
The good thing is, of course, you're coming to the market at a wonderful time, as I said, for copper especially. You mentioned a number of different other elements there and metals that, of course, are really doing very well in the market at the moment. I'll get onto that in just a minute. What I'll quickly catch up, if I can, as to the finances for all this. My understanding is you've managed to bring this mine on stream with a relatively modest capital outlay. How have you done it?
Well, absolutely. Well, first it was in the acquisition costs. We bought the mine when it was in bankruptcy. We bought it out of bankruptcy, so we acquired it very cheap. We did spend quite a bit of money on care and maintenance during the period where we were trying to license it. But historically, I mean, the mine was built and shaft sunk in the 1960s. It was operating until 2014. So there's $50-60+ million in infrastructure in there, and probably over 100 million if you were to replace that today. So realistically, with under $15 million, including the recent capital expenditure that's been put into the mine, bringing a copper mine that has a resource of up to 5 million tonnes of what we know, and it's only the tip of the iceberg on the exploration. It has a 15+ year life of mine, potentially 25. For $15 million is quite an inexpensive cost. Plus the labour cost, fortunately for us at the moment, is still quite cheap in Romania. And with all that infrastructure in place, it's probably one of the lowest, if not definitely in Europe, cost producers of copper concentrate in the world. So we could drop to almost half price, and we'd still be profitable.
Yeah, that's a great setup for when production comes through at real pace. My understanding is you're getting asset-backed debt funding due to be finalised in the coming weeks. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, we've announced to the market we started a due diligence process with the refinance and further funding for the expansion of the mine in March this year. We received the first credit committee approval in October, which we've also announced. And we're waiting for the final term sheet, which is due at the end of this month, and then the final credit committee approval during the course of December, and plan to do the drawdown, and that will be a milestone because it is a tier 1 bank, which is a great name to have attached to the company. We're still confident of that proceeding.
Now, of course, we're talking here about this Baita Plai mine, which is this copper mine we've been talking about in Romania. What's it like to work in Romania? You have a long history of association with Romania, so no better person to ask in that respect. What is it like? Being a company based in London and operating in Romania? What's it like as an operator?
I mean, my family origin is actually Romanian, even though I was born and raised in Australia. So I basically class myself as a bridge builder between cultures. I mean, Romania is an EU country. It was the fifth largest economy of Europe pre-World War II. It's always been abundant in natural resources going back to Roman times, and it's a highly educated population. It's been overlooked for a number of years. It's not an easy jurisdiction to work in, and I think the proof in the mining industry especially, we're the only operators in the country other than the government. But I do believe that this is a milestone not only for VAST, but also for the country to get a foreign company, a PLC, to invest in country and get mines into operation. So I think it's wonderful for the country, and it hasn't been easy because of the cultural differences and political differences, but we do believe with the mining history of the country, this is the first of many investments in country.
Let's return to that point you made about the metals and the prices. I want to talk about particularly. We've got this a new 6 or 7 year high, I think, for the price of copper. But we've seen a recent ramp up in some of the other metals you mentioned. Clearly, as I said, is it a good time to do all this? How much easier has your job been made because of the background, the pricing of the metals in the market at the moment?
As I said before, we're an extremely low-cost producer. When we first did the feasibility studies on this, I think it was back in 2014, copper was above this price. And we did continued the models, and during the phase when even copper in 2016 dropped down to $4,300 a tonne, and it was still economically viable. And that's why we continued to pursue it. For us, it's a bonus. Anything over that price of the initial feasibility studies of $4,300 a tonne is upside for us. So what it's done is it's accelerated our program for wanting to increase volumes. That's what the price of the metals has done for the company. Is now that we've got a high, we've got the EVs being a primary driver for copper price, and the European directive to change to electric vehicles. You've got to remember that you've also got the infrastructure that needs to be able to power those electric vehicles. It's not only building the cars, it's powering those cars. So we believe there'll be a high demand for copper moving forward. So really it's accelerating our expansion process in country in copper. So it has driven us ahead, and because of the additional profitability of the increased prices, it'll allow us to achieve our goals a hell of a lot faster.
How do you see your operations expanding in Romania? Clearly, with money beginning to start to come onto the balance sheet, obviously things are made a lot easier. Do you have any other aspirations in Romania? Before we get on to your other assets, I know that you have in Zimbabwe.
Certainly. Well, we've got the Baita mine. We're only mining one of 16 skarns in the licensed area. So I think about 5% of the licensed area is being mined. So there is enormous room for expansion possibilities within this high-grade copper skarn deposit, which also comes with other mineralizations. We also have the Naylor project, which we mined for a few years, which we've put on care and maintenance temporarily. And we've increased the JORC up to 5.6 million tonnes at a 2.4% copper equivalent. And there's another further exploration target of 15 million tonnes from historic data. So we'll be looking at reopening that in the next couple of years. The problem with that was that the processing plant was 30 kilometres away from the open pit, and 30% of the production cost was transport. So as the grade got lower, it became not cost effective. So we'll be revisiting that and reopening that. We have another 2 prospecting sites that we're moving into exploration next year as well. But all of this will be driven by the profitability of Baita, that will allow us to then move into these other mines that are potentially tier 1 assets. So there is quite a lot on our plate in Romania, but the main driver will be Baita.
So what about the assets then in Zimbabwe? Are these now going to be taking a little bit of a back seat? I mean, they're only development assets, of course, anyway. So one wonders where ultimately they may well go. Is your time now just been taken up with what's happening in Romania?
No, not at all. We divested in our gold assets in Zimbabwe last year. That was because of the arrangements we had with our partners. We were a minority shareholder. So we couldn't see any visibility on taking out dividends, even though it was a successful mine. because of the position and the structure that was inherited. But we're focused on the diamond assets there, which historically Vast had discovered the Marangi diamond fields back in 2006. They lost the diamond assets, but with the change in government there, we re-engaged with government and community, and it's a community-driven project. We almost signed last year this time, but there were some changes on the ground and internal community issues that have now been resolved. Then we were hit with COVID, but we still are very positive. We believe that we'll be starting that project reasonably soon as well. So we are focused in Zimbabwe. It's a separate management team on ground, highly experienced in the diamond sector, and we will be pursuing that. And we do strongly believe that we're going to be continuing with that project.
Yeah, I want to bring up the share price, if I can, of Vast Resources. Currently trading, as I say, it's AIM listed, 0.17 pence. I've got a market cap of about 30 million, I think just shy of 30 million at the moment, as of this moment. What are you seeing as being priced in at these levels?
Absolutely nothing, to be honest with you. It's not. I still believe that just on the Baita asset alone, we're close to 4 to 5 times undervalued. We have quite a few shares on issue, and we've been criticised for that, but that's what brought that asset into production. When you have no peer comparisons in market, it's very hard to raise debt. So we have to prove concept, which we've now done, which is now giving us the ability to finance with tier 1 banking institutions. I think that will be the driver. The change in finance will help the share price. But more importantly, we now have the mining operation. It'll be near-term profitability, so very, very quick to get into profit centre. Probably 2-3 months of production will be in profits. That is the base case for moving forward, and we will have a re-rate. The issue is we have no institutional investor. Most of it's retail, and we're planning at the moment of changing our shareholder base, and we believe that will be the driver to show true value of the assets.
Okay, very briefly, a couple of headlines for investors going into 2021. What's next year looking like from your seat as Chief Executive?
Well, the company is the cleanest it's ever been. When we issued our annual accounts, it was the first time in the company history that there were no red flags in the accounts. We are reasonably low debt, and we're going to be a low-cost producer of a commodity that's in high demand. Well, several commodities that are in high demand. So I do believe that we are due for a massive re-rate shortly, and we're highly undervalued, and we're now a copper concentrate producer and hopefully a diamond producer in 2021 as well.
Yeah, well, look, good luck. We look forward to catching up with you again sometime in 2021. But in the meantime, Andrew, thanks indeed there for joining us. The Chief Executive of Vast Resources, that's Andrew Prelea. For more videos from us here at IGTV, join us on Twitter at IGTV and subscribe to our YouTube channel.